This is Jeremy. Good to glad you made it, Jeremy. We literally he joined and then we were like live within 2 seconds because that's how much time we
Super
had.
sorry, Tim.
No, we're good. We're good. So for those of you guys who are jumping in here, we have a pretty important conversation to have with Jeremy about the future of revenue and what's going on in the whole YouTube space with FTC and children and COPPA and creators and legal and all this stuff. And I wanted to have a dedicated time for us to talk about this because this is really important. And to be totally honest, like if you guys know me at all, like YouTube is not, they are prone to have big controversial issues that pop up and people freak out about and the world goes crazy and 2 months later, no one remembers it. Right. So, I'm kind of one of those guys that like, let's say level headed, let's keep our heads on our shoulders. Let's not go too crazy about like with all this. And that's kind of, and I still am that way. But then Jeremy calls me, that was a few weeks ago, and he's like, hey, here's what I think. What do you think? And I told him what I thought, and I listened to what he thought, and I was like, you sound like you are way more educated about this than I am. And so I wanted Jeremy to come here with you guys and talk about everything that's going on with FTC and COPPA and all these regulations that looks like it's going to take effect January 1st. And the big question is, what does that mean for us? And I can already see some of you guys who are live in the chat are already asking questions about what does this mean for us. And like I'm trying to decide like Soul Moon's Rising is like, I'm excited for this. Hopefully it helps us decide how we should proceed with our daughter's channel. She's 12. And this might be a bigger deal than maybe anything else we've encountered on YouTube before. And so I don't want to like create a lot of drama necessarily, but I do think it's important to separate drama from facts and talk about like the facts of what's actually happening and what the implications are as we go forward as creators. So thank you, Jeremy, for being here. And why don't you introduce yourself real quick, and then I want to set something up here and we'll dive in.
Yeah, Tim, and I really appreciate you letting me on. And sorry for everyone that I am just on my phone. I had some technical difficulties here. I am Jeremy Johnston, and I'm an attorney. I went to law school about 10 years ago, and I was practicing as an attorney until I found family vlogs on YouTube. And I went to my wife and was like, this is something we should do. Like, this is incredible. Actually, Tim Schmoyer's videos were one of the ones. Your family had a huge impact on Kendra being like, wow, this is incredible how families are being a light to the world and they're sharing positive messages. And, through prayerful consideration, we decided to do it. And we're so grateful. I mean, now J House Vlogs has almost 2 billion views, 2 million subscribers. I'm not actually actively practicing as a lawyer, but it has been helpful to be a lawyer as a YouTuber, because in this Wild West community we're in, there's a lot of legal issues that come up. And I've had the chance to work with a lot of creators on those issues. And really what's different about this situation than Elsa Gate or Adpocalypse is we're bringing the federal government into it. And I just don't think that a lot of creators understand the risks that we're facing right now and how serious it could be if we're not willing to step up and let our voices be heard.
Yeah. So those of you guys who are on the live stream here, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions, and I didn't ask Jeremy, but I'm assuming we'll hit some questions at the end here.
Course. I'll be on here as long as you need, dude. Do whatever I can.
All right. So if you guys have questions, ask them in the chat, and we will try to get those here towards the end. But before we dive into all of that, like a couple things. Number one, for those of you guys who are listening to the podcast this later, especially, there are links in the show notes. And as Jeremy talks through this, there are links in the description for those of you guys who are in the live stream here to talk that will go to some of the various things that I'm sure Jeremy will talk about here as we kind of go through our conversation. And yeah, so let's start back at the beginning. So you guys got questions? Let's hit that up. All right, that's all I want to say there. Okay, so let's go back to the very beginning and tell the story for people who might not be familiar with like what's the COPPA, FTC. People in the chat are like, what's FTC and federal, and stuff like that. And I think and one thing just kind of point out is that this is this is going to have an international effect, not just like, and we'll get to that, but for some people who might immediately be like, nope, I'm out, like I'm not in the US, doesn't matter. No, this is actually a US company and it will impact everyone in the world. So this is kind of a big deal. So yeah, start back at the beginning, Jeremy.
Yeah, and before I go to the beginning, the other misconception that a lot of creators have is that this is only going to impact kids' channels. And that's one of the biggest reasons I'm raising awareness about this, is because the implications could be much bigger. The FTC is considering expanding this in a very big way. So I'll jump back to the beginning. I remember on the morning of September 4th, as a creator, we got this email from YouTube, and it said that they just had a settlement with the FTC for $170 million over complaints that the FTC had against YouTube of COPPA violations. And a lot of people, Tim, you've been calling it COPPA, but it's called COPPA.
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's not a big deal. I didn't know that. I didn't know how to call it that. I knew nothing about any of this. And honestly, for the first 2 or 3 weeks after this, I was really concerned about our channel. I remember having phone calls with my partner manager at YouTube and asking a lot of questions, like, because what the ruling was that the FTC had is they didn't just fine YouTube. And again, it's not a fine, it's a settlement. There's a stipulated order where YouTube agreed that instead of having to go to court and see if a judge found them guilty of these violations, they entered a settlement with the FTC to pay this money and to do other things. And one of the things YouTube agreed to do was to force its creators to designate whether their videos were child directed. Okay. And that's a big deal here, because there's a lot of confusion on whether a video is child directed or not. But here's the implications. If a video is child directed, then you have to turn off personalized ads on your videos. And right now, that is the main stream of income through AdSense for YouTube creators, is personalized ads. Obviously, if you've been listening to Tim, he talks about a lot of different ways to diversify your income, and that's a hugely important thing. But when I'm talking about, losing their mainstream, I am talking about money that comes from YouTube. That is the primary source that's coming in. So you have to turn that off. And then there's other implications. Comments may be going off. The notifications aren't going to happen. There's still uncertainty about whether they're going to be suggesting those videos or not. And I don't know if you've ever had that happen to a video where YouTube just turns the suggestions off, but it's devastating, right? I mean, most of our views, most of the growth on my channel has come from the suggestions. And so all of those things mean it's going to hurt. And the wording that YouTube actually uses in their blog post on this is it's going to have a significant business impact on family and kids creators. Here's the thing, though. Once I started looking into this and reading about it, the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission, they're the government agency that has been given the charge to enforce COPPA. And COPPA is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So going back in 1998, the legislature, this newfangled YouTube thing needed some more regulation, right? If you remember back to the AOL and the noises that would come on when you would sign in online. So this is way back before YouTube. They realized that children were getting online onto chat groups, and people could be asking for their personal information, like their phone number, their email address, their social security number. And the legislators did not want that to get into the hands of people who could harm children, like sex offenders. And so the purpose of COPPA, which had unified support from anybody, was, look, we want to put parents in control of this personal information. So you have to notify and get consent from parents before you're able to take this personal information from children. And so any website or service online that wasn't going to do those things, the FTC could come in and bring a lawsuit against them. And the fines, if you violate these rules, were up to $42,000 per violation. So then we jump forward to 2013. And at this point, the FTC makes a huge change. The FTC has the power to amend their regulation of COPPA. And they make a huge change that goes beyond what I think is the original intent of COPPA, which was to protect children's personal information. And they said, look, now we're going to hold any operator strictly liable if they're going to be using personal identifiers like cookies to track what people are doing to send advertising. Okay. And so that's how YouTubers are now liable, was this change that happened back in 2013, where it said, look, if you're using cookies to send advertising and that's happening to kids, then you're in trouble. And they added then that definition of child-directed content. Like, if you're doing this to child-directed content, here's what happens. And the definition of child-directed content is confusing, right? There's no bright line rule of what that means. I often say it's an analogy like we're driving on a street and there's a speed limit sign, and instead of a number, it just says, don't go too fast. The child-directed has a 10-factor test that we can look at. So one of the creators on there was asking the question, like, is my kid's channel, or is, my channel, are my videos child-directed? You're going to have to go through that 10-factor test. And right now there's so much uncertainty about it that honestly, even if you go to 10 different experts on COPPA, you would be getting different advice about it, because no one really knows how to apply it to all the different content. Tim and I made videos about our kids. Are those made for kids, or are those made for a general audience or a mixed audience? No one really knows right now. But the implication is that if you get a ticket on that street, it's a $42,000 ticket. And so it's a pretty big deal. So I've had the chance to actually meet with FTC commissioners. There's 5 FTC commissioners who are going to be making these decisions. And right now, they've said that they're opening it up for reconsideration of how they regulate COPPA. This is just like what they did back in 2013. Now, back then, they only got 99 comments in 2012 when they made these huge changes. People like Google and Disney wrote in comments saying, hey, this is a terrible idea, because they knew how that was going to impact business online, and that it was going to have harmful effects for kids, because if you start to shut off the ways that people are able to make money by making good content, then that content starts to dry up, and you're actually starting to incentivize more mature and potentially inappropriate content for kids. And so all of those things were brought up. But at that point in time, and again, just for context, not to politicize it, but at that time you had all Obama appointed FTC commissioners, and it was Democratic led. And typically they are more friendly towards regulation. Now, the commissioners, the 5 commissioners, are appointed by Trump and primarily Republican, typically not as friendly to regulation, more for, small business creators. So I've had the chance to go and meet with commissioners. I have upcoming appointments to talk to them again. And I was surprised how little they knew about what was actually going on for creators and how this was going to impact us. They had their settlement with with YouTube, but I don't think they really understood all the implications. And so we've been going in and educating them and letting them know. And the FTC has opened up a public comment period where you can send in comments and let them know about what's happening. And so what we're doing is starting a whole campaign saying, hey, let's, as creators, send comments in, letting them know how confusing this is, how difficult it is, and the negative implications for children and creators. And let's invite our viewers to do the same so that we can really give them feedback to help make a difference for this. And they've told me they read every comment, and they've encouraged me to invite people to do it. They want participation. This is kind of the democratic process that opens up for the FTC to get feedback. And so that's one of the main things I'm doing, is saying, hey, on November 5th, which is tomorrow, we wanted to pick a day that was like a democratic day, typically a voting day in the United States. Let your voice be heard and send in your comment, make a video, and let your audience know about it. And we're hoping to raise a lot of awareness. There are articles that are going to be coming out with Bloomberg and with TubeFilter tomorrow as well. And I think that we're going to be able to raise awareness to get onto even more bigger media after that, and really have a campaign trying to help people fight for family-friendly content on YouTube. All right, that was a lot of talking. So
yeah. Let's back up and review some stuff, and then I also want to get into, like, for the rest of you guys, like, this is not just about kid content though. There's a lot of implications, even if you don't have child-directed content, and we'll get into that as well, because this issue tends to balloon and expand, which is part of the problem. So to summarize, I think we can all agree that, tracking children online is probably not, like, we understand the safety implications of why they would do something like that. And at some point, it feels like they went above and beyond and said, like, even if YouTube or a browser or a user tracks, not necessarily like this is Johnny Johnston, it was more like this is just this is a kid, and like it's just they don't have any idea personally, any idea who that is, but they're just saying this is a person who's watching this content, and this content. So here's an ad, that's like personalized just for them, and so maybe it's not based on content, but it's based on like a lot of different factors, including content, and so the U.S. government, the FTC, is saying like you can't. That's called tracking minors. If you're tracking them and this implicates the views or which videos are being suggested and which ads are being served to them, and so we probably can't suggest videos the same way we did before, and we can't show personalized ads, which has kind of been like YouTube's like main
bread and butter.
Yeah, like as if you want contextual ads where it's just like you're targeting the content itself, then you like go to television. That's how they've been doing it. But if now they have to compete on that type of level and they have to remove the personalized element of this, then like to your point, YouTube has said that there'll be a significant decrease in revenue. Well, possibly. What did they say technically? It was, I don't want to misquote him, but it was like your business earnings or potential will be significantly hindered or something like that.
The big piece of this that is really hard for me is YouTube is set up knowing about these regulations, right? So it's not just that kids are being targeted with these ads. YouTube has created YouTube Kids app. If parents are concerned about personalized ads, they have made a sandbox for the kids to play in, which is what COPPA requires. It's like, look, if you have a big audience where you make stuff for kids and you make stuff for kids, people older than 13, you need to have a safe space for them to play in. And YouTube has done that. So as creators, if you want to watch J-House vlogs and you have kids under 13, go ahead. And we've encouraged our viewers to do that. We've promoted YouTube Kids throughout these years and said, look, go there and use it. The problem, though, and the reality is that parents typically prefer normal YouTube because there's less barriers and there's more features. I mean, if a parent likes the fact that they can look up the viewing history of their kids online, you can't do that on YouTube Kids. If you want to watch all of J-House Vlogs videos, you can't do that. If you want to go through our playlist of all of our videos, you can't do that on YouTube Kids. And so with all these barriers and hassles that regulation causes, people are like, you know what, I'd rather just use YouTube. And here's the thing. If you use YouTube, then you've agreed that you are 13 and older. Obviously, we know that that's not actually happening, but that's what people are saying if they use it. So if a parent knowingly takes their device, so parents buy iPads, iPhones, whatever, and then they hand it to their kids to watch YouTube, the creators shouldn't be penalized for that. That's the main argument that I'm coming out and saying. We should be considering parents. The whole purpose of COPPA was to put parents in control. But what they did in 2013 with the regulation was they completely removed parents from the process, and now they're trying to tell parents how to parent. They're trying to do it for them to try to protect the children. But they haven't considered all the unintended consequences. But the truth is that since 2013, we have evidences of what has happened to some industries when this was put into place. The app industry got crushed by this. The big players continue to survive, like Disney and Nick Jr. and PBS, like those people who are able to cater to that do fine. But all the small business entrepreneurs who were wanting to make apps for children couldn't keep up with the regulation, and they decided it was better to just make more mature or general audience apps. That's what we're concerned about happening now with YouTube, and why we're reaching out and saying, hey, this is not a good idea, and we're not even violating COPPA because of the way that it's structured. And it's insane to consider us operators when we don't have control over the operations. YouTube does, right? I can't even put my videos on YouTube Kids if I want to. I'm up to YouTube. And if I wanted to make it friendly according to COPPA, I can't control that. The only controls I have is what kind of video I put up, which I try to put up good videos for everybody. And then I can control whether or not I am going to run personalized or not, ads or not, on my whole channel. That's how it was set up. So I could come in and say, okay, I'm going to turn off my whole business. And that's what the FTC is saying. Look, you have a choice as a creator to do it. Yeah, I have a choice to turn off my whole business. And that's why we're letting them know about these things, and they're listening to us, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm pretty excited about all
No,
that.
this is good. Yeah, I'm learning a lot, and we got a lot of good questions popping up in the chat already that I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more broadly now. So so far we're talking about like if someone doesn't have kid channel and they're like, okay, yeah, like that's fine for them,
Yeah.
but you see how this is going to like have a broader impact on YouTube as a whole, even for people who don't primarily just have child directed content, right? So tell us about what you see going on there.
All right. So we talked about the 2013 amendment. The way that it's set up is every 10 years, the FTC does a review process of their enforcement, and then they make updates because the legislator, when they set this up, knew that technology was going to continue to change. And so you would need to update the rules to match with technology changes. The FTC has deliberately chosen to go earlier than normal to do their update and changes now. And when they sent out their request for public comments, they said specifically they were considering the question of broadening the definition of child directed to include content that a lot of kids under 13 like to watch, which is a phrase that's called child attractive. Sorry, I keep doing this. My wife always is annoyed.
The air quotes for those of you guys listening.
I'm trying to say, like, these are legal terms of art. That's what I mean by that. Like, this is a legal term of art. So child attractive content. So for example, Dude Perfect, they may not be directing children, but a lot of children like to watch them. And so the FTC could come in and say, hey, Dude Perfect, you have tons of views over on YouTube Kids. You're out. We need to turn off personalized ads on all your videos. Gamers, PewDiePie, way too many kids under 12 are watching your stuff. You're off. Cooking shows, vlogs, music and sports. Like, there's so many categories where a lot of kids 12 and under like to watch. And the FTC literally wrote down, this is one of the few questions we're considering making a change on. And so that's why I'm so excited about this and saying, look, this isn't just about kids' channels. We were wanting to make a kids' channel separate from J House Vlogs. And when this came out, we were like, I don't think we're going to go forward with it because of all the risk and the uncertainty and the potential penalties. But is J House Vlogs, just my family vlog, at risk? It may not be right now, but if they make that change to say if a lot of kids like to watch it, then yeah, we're going to be in big trouble, along with most of YouTube. And so that's why I'm really passionate about this and saying, look, what's crazy is the FTC settlement happened. We're supposed to comment on it, but nobody knows how it's actually going to play out. And so I'm trying to paint a picture for people to say, look, this is what is about to happen and what could happen for you. We need to let them know before all this happens that that's a bad idea. And if we can raise enough awareness and excitement and energy around it, then it'll have more of a power in hitting them over the head that we don't want more regulation on YouTube.
So how will the FTC know if it's if there are like what the age group of the kids are watching the content on YouTube? Like,
Well,
in terms of
that's the thing. So of the factors, like there's the 10-factor test I talk about. And one of the things is actual evidence of children watching. And they're saying they want to expand this where you could say, look, how many kids are watching on YouTube Kids? That is one way that we know they could use as evidence, right? Where they could just say, we're going to pull those records. J House, you have 10% of your viewership is on YouTube Kids. That's enough, or 25% or 30, who knows? But there's a lot of other ways that they could do that. But they haven't outlined that, how they're going to do it. They've just said that's something they're going to be looking at.
Do you happen to know those 10 things, like where we're at right now in terms of like, these are the 10 things that we're going to be evaluating to determine whether or not it's child directed or not?
I'll list the ones I remember. So,
okay.
It's like the subject matter, and again, what's hard with that, like we just posted our Halloween video. So is that child directed or not? It's about me and Kendra as a family doing Halloween with our kids. We show our kids and we talk about getting ready to go to the potluck with our friends. We don't think that's directed to kids. I talk about how I was bummed that I didn't dress up and I showed pictures of my friends who dressed up. But most of the video is about my kids. The thing that's frustrating about this is that they want to say one of the factors is, are kids in your videos or are you featuring kids? That's one of the factors to consider. But Cosby's Show and Full House had kids in it. That didn't mean it was directed to kids. A lot of adults thought Michelle Tanner was cute, and so that's one of the arguments we come back with. But then they say, like, look, is there animation? Is it animated characters, or are there celebrities that are attractive to children? So, I mean, that's a really hard question too, right? Like, am I a celebrity that's attractive to children? Or are you talking about Michael Jordan, who wanted me to drink Gatorade when I was a kid? Or, you know, all the other celebrities that are selling stuff online. Does that mean my kids? I don't know, but that's one of the factors that they're looking at. So yeah, animated, the kind of music that you're using, but they don't say the kind of music. They just say, you know, are you using music on it? It's like, well, everyone's using music. I mean, it's interesting too. Like, I include emojis in a lot of my titles now on J House Vlogs. Could you say that that means it's child directed? But you look at the statistics of how many adult women are using emojis, most of them are doing that too. So, but what's really frustrating, when you look at the complaint that the FTC filed against YouTube, they picked out 13 channels that they focused on to show evidences of why they considered them child directed. And I thought the reasons were really ridiculous, but they should be scary to us. So like, they took channels like EvanTube, or channels like, I'm trying to think of one, Bratayley. That was it. So Bratayley and EvanTube, like, let's just talk about them real quick. They said, like, look, this channel designated in their description box that they're family friendly. That's evidence that this is directed to children. It's like, why? And then they said, look, YouTube has designated these videos as for kids, or YouTube has internal emails saying that this is for kids. I'm like, that's not even something I did as a creator. So I immediately sent like a request to YouTube saying, hey, what emails do you have about me? Or how are you rating my videos? Because that could be used as evidence against my channel. And I want to make sure I know that if I'm facing $42,000 per video. And so, you know, those were requests that I made very quick, because I looked at the complaint for the evidences they were looking at. But, you know, the other types of things are actual evidence. And then they do consider our intent, you know. So for us as a channel, we could go back and say, look, you can look at the beginning of our channel when we talked about why we were making this. And we listed the reasons, like, we're making it for us to have for our memories. We're making it to try to inspire people. We're making it, you know, we gave all these reasons why. None of them were like, we're making this video for children, you know, like, that wasn't a reason. And so we can go in and say, look, that hasn't been our intent. Where creators are really stuck in a hard spot, though, is that with all that happened with Advocacy, we've been like being pushed to make stuff more and more child friendly or family friendly because of all the advertising stuff. And so if you get pigeonholed where YouTube is like showing all your stuff on YouTube Kids, you can't control that. And we have no idea how much money is coming from that. YouTube won't tell us that. So, you know, for our channel, J House Vlogs has had more and more views on YouTube Kids, but I don't know what kind of a financial difference that makes for us. I do know that that could be used as evidence to crucify me in the future if the FTC comes after me. Sorry.
So how,
Again,
so how do
like,
you really
super
feel,
excited.
Jeremy? Yeah, I know. No. This is good. So we have a lot of questions that maybe we can dive into, but before we dive into them, let's talk about, so what do we do now? Like, what are next steps that we should take?
Yeah, I would invite all creators to join with us in sending a comment tomorrow to the FTC. Now, what this is, they do public comments, and it's just a link you click on and you go to the FTC. And I have a document. If you go to any of the videos that I've made on J House Law, I've just been putting up videos there because I'm doing it for creators, not for viewers. And so if you go there, I have several videos that have links where you can find suggested things you can talk about in your comment. And we're not looking for form comments here. That's not what the FTC wants. We're wanting to hear the actual stories of what you're concerned about for the YouTube ecosystem, or why you don't want them to expand the regulation. And again, I list all of this there. So we need to go and make comments, and we need to invite our viewers. We need to educate them, because the more people who are educated about this will step up and do it. And we've seen a great response. I mean, from people who are hearing about it already, like, the people who watch your stuff don't want you to go away. And so on J House tomorrow, we're going to be making a video kind of giving that plea. Like, we love doing this. It's been such a blessing. You know, it's such a cool mechanism that you guys get to watch for free, and we get to make a living making great content. Like, that's all possible because of the magic of personalized ads. This technology that allows the democratization of entertainment, which isn't now just being controlled by TV. And if you want that to continue, then let the FTC know. And so that's the biggest thing we're doing. We were able to get an extension. The FTC actually had the deadline back into October 23rd. And I went in and we got a bunch of creators to send in a request saying, hey, we need more time to let you know our feelings. And they did extend it into December. But we're trying to have an initial push on November 5th so that we can get enough attention and media support so that we can grow it over the next month and get bigger YouTubers involved and more people talking about it.
There's a few links in the description of this live stream or in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast later. And one goes to a petition. Now, just signing the petition, is that what you need, or do you need people to go to the actual FTC website?
We created the petition because we knew not everybody would write a comment to the FTC. That can be a harder step. And so the petition is good. We want people to do that and to sign it. But the best thing is to actually send a comment to the FTC. You know, I mean, they had 99 comments back in 2013. What if we get 100,000 comments to the FTC saying, get off our back? That's going to have a huge impact to the FTC. You know, that's the hope. And so we're wanting people to go and tell their story. The other thing, too, is each creator really has a different perspective to offer the FTC. I mean, for me as a family vlogger is going to be different than Dude Perfect's, you know, explanation of why this is frustrating and concerning to them.
So go to the link to the FTC and to the petition are both in the show notes and the description. You go fill them both out. But the more important one is the one that goes to the FTC. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So fill that out. Now, my question to Jeremy was like, well, I just listened to this for 30 minutes. And I understand this is a big deal. I still don't really know what to say. So there's also links down there that Jeremy's put together that go to some talking points or Google Docs that will give you some talking points, whether you are a creator or talking points that you want to use with your viewers. And even if it's past the November 5th date, which is coming up pretty fast, that's okay. Like, we have until December to get this in, so you have some time to talk to your audience about this. So if you want some talking points, follow those from Jeremy, and leave a comment here on the FTC's website, and all those links, very easy for you to do, just fine. If you could just quickly give us like some sample, maybe not like say this type of thing, but maybe like how would you encourage people to go about filling this out?
I mean, the biggest thing is introduce yourself and talk about what your personal concerns are. You know, as a YouTuber, I'm concerned that this regulation is going to harm our ability to make great content for kids. So, I mean, you can set it up in different categories. Like, number one, here's my concerns for the YouTube ecosystem. Creators are being discouraged to make quality content for kids, and creators are being encouraged to make more mature content because creators now have the incentive to prove that they're not making kids content so that they don't lose personalized ads. That is very concerning. You know, kids content creators are being incentivized to make more brand deals because now they have to make up for the money lost with that revenue. I don't know any parents out there that are wanting more brand deals in kids content, but that's an unintended consequence that is going to come from this. You know, and then I talk about some of the audiences that I'm most concerned about. Like, I found this amazing channel called Special Books by Special Kids. And it's all about this teacher who worked with special needs kids, and he went around interviewing children who had special needs. And because of the magic of personalized ads, he was able to leave his job and do this full time. He's been doing it for 4 years. He has almost 2 million subscribers. But because of this kind of regulation, those kinds of channels are also going to get hit. And it harms those communities, those voices, people who are of special needs or underserved audiences. Like, we talk about faith in our videos or family values, or people who are talking about minority groups. You know, if you are following a family that is interracial or LGBT, and those are things you really care about, it's not like mainstream media has a tons of options that represent all the unique voices that YouTube has to offer. And so when you take away those voices that are speaking to children that are unique and want those audiences and want to communicate about that, that's really devastating. There's also concerns about how this impacts the digital divide. I mean, it's those parents that maybe have most income insecurity that are the least likely to pay for YouTube Premium or to use YouTube Kids. And so they're the ones that are going to see the most trashy content as the YouTube content begins to increase in maturity and you lose the quality content. So, I mean, those are all things you can talk about generally, but you can really get into your specific situation. Like, you know, I have 1,300 videos that I now have to go through. It's over 200 hours of content, and I have to designate before the end of the year whether it's child directed or not. And YouTube hasn't even made that button available yet, but I have to go through and decide that, even though I don't know what you mean by celebrities that are attractive to kids, or what you mean by music. You know, yeah, there's music in my videos. I don't know if it's for kids, or the subject matter of my videos. I don't know, you know, but I have to do that. So letting them know those specific concerns, you know, we actually started doing more brand deals because of this, because it was like, oh no, in January we might be losing money. And I don't like feeling the pressure to do brand deals. We hate that. You know, we've only done 4 brand deals this year, but almost all of them have been done since this announcement came out. That's the kinds of things we should be letting them know about.
So did they approve brand deals in kids content? I thought that was kind of like a known ruling.
Right now, what you need to know is there is a petition against Ryan's Kids Review, where the same kind of child advocacy groups who brought the petition, the request for an investigation against YouTube, are now going after Ryan's Toy Review to try to show the problems with this. And YouTube is letting you post your brand deal if you're a kids channel, but they won't let it go on YouTube Kids. So again, you set yourself up for a huge problem, because if YouTube Kids starts putting more and more of your content on YouTube Kids, but then when you do a brand deal, they shut it off, brands are going to be really disappointed when you suddenly get 20,000 views when they were expecting 250 or 1 million views. That's going to shut down that industry pretty fast because of just the mechanisms of what's going on.
So doing a brand integration into a piece of content that is child directed is still prohibited. And it seems like that's not going away. Well, not prohibited. It's just not prohibited if it actually gets watched by children.
It's right now, the way it's set up is YouTube isn't running those on YouTube Kids. But that's another issue that is going to be faced going forward, is what's going to happen with that. And so we'll have to see what happens. There's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. So whether you have a kid-specific channel or you have kids who you think watch your content, I think the only person who could be possibly safe is if you have some drug, sex, and rock and roll channel. You know, maybe you might be safe, but even then, you're probably not like banking on ads that much anyway. So
there are 12-year-olds out there who like that stuff too. I'm just saying.
I guess so. Yeah. So maybe nobody's safe in that case. That's not funny. I don't know why I laughed. So we should all fill this out. And I think the main thing that, and I'm going to fill this out like today, but like the main thing that stands out to me, Jeremy, is that it kind of comes back, it's less about YouTube and more about the principle of like the government thinking they can parent my kids better than me, you know? And again, and I'm not saying like that they shouldn't take things into consideration for the general population and things like that. But when it comes out, like I never felt like personalized ads I never felt like that was a risk to my children. I never felt like they were like there was a dangerous thing. Like they were now, because there was a personalized ad that something bad was going to happen to my kids. Like I never felt like that was a problem. And it feels like it's like, a solution looking for a problem in some ways, you know. I'm like, oh, there's a problem, like that's bad. And I'm like, I don't care if my kids see personalized ads. In fact, I pay for YouTube Premium, so they don't see it at all. but which is another option. Like if you just don't want to see the ads, you could pay for it. Although I know not everyone can afford that, and that causes some problems as well. But I don't know. I just feel it's like, to me, I'm like, I can make the choice of whether or not I was an issue. I'm not under the impression that this all came to head at the FTC because parents were submitting voicing concerns about personalized ads. So it feels like we've kind of gone way off track, and this is a much different issue than it was supposed to be.
That's one of the main points I'm making to the FTC is, look, you need to be paying attention to the reality of what's going on. A Pew Research poll in 2018 showed that 81% of parents knowingly let their children 11 and under watch YouTube main. And that means they're watching the personalized ads. And so clearly, and I look at the data on my own channel, only 1% of the views on my channel come from YouTube Premium. So there's a lot of information there. Clearly, parents would rather have free ads to watch YouTube than to pay the monthly subscription to get rid of it. I mean, that's data for us to know. So a lot of parents would prefer to use YouTube Main rather than YouTube Kids. We shouldn't be punishing creators for this. And this is the thing. COPPA wasn't intended to regulate content. Like, they're really starting to get into dangerous ground with constitutional stuff too. Like, they're regulating content and advertising, and you start to get into potential discrimination problems too. Like, am I going to get penalized because I have young children, but Dude Perfect isn't because it's 5 grown men who play? That just raises some concerns. Like you start to open a whole can of worms when you start going beyond the regulation. And, you know, Washington, D.C. and their ivory towers want to say, this is how everyone should be parenting. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, that's not what everyone's doing, and they're okay with it. It's almost like when I've talked to people there that are defending this, they treat it like personalized ads as like a group of people sitting around in a dark, smoky room, looking at all the data of children and individually plotting how to best manipulate them to buy drugs and alcohol. I mean, I'm exaggerating, right? That's clearly not what's happening, but it feels like that's the story they're painting, where it's like, no, what's happening is kids are watching Daniel Tiger and Sid the Science Kid, and by looking at that history, YouTube knows that they should suggest an ad that's similar to that. Yeah. That's not some big, scary privacy concern.
Right. Yeah. So let's dive into some questions here because I know you guys got a lot of them here, and I want to see if we can get as many as possible. So Green Shorts DIY, thank you for the super chat, says, heard once at a political forum that if a legislator hears from as little as 12 constituents, they take notice of an issue. Our voices are important. So yeah, 12. And one of the things you say in one of your videos, which is also linked in the show notes in the description, you guys can watch out one of these videos from Jeremy as he's giving you, I just saw a video yesterday. You were down there vlogging your experience by meeting with the FTC, right? And so if you guys want to stay on top of everything Jeremy's learning, you can go check out his channel, J House Law, down there. But one of the reasons I guess I feel like most compelled to actually fill this form out is because you said here and in other places too, like they actually listen and they actually care. And I get that because a lot of times people don't feel that about YouTube. And I'm like, no, I know these people at YouTube. They do listen and they do care, even though they're not talking to you directly. And I feel like this is one of those things, like, it's worth your time. It's not just going to go into a black hole and they're going to look at the total number of like comments they got and be like, that was like 3 short of what we needed or whatever. Like you said, they're actually literally reading every single one. So it's worth our time.
Yeah. And they need our information. I mean, when I sat down with some of them, they asked questions like, well, with these changes coming on, why don't you just put your kids' channel on your own website? And it was like, wow, you really don't understand how this works. Like, I don't have an army of advertising go out and make the same kind of monetization money that I would be getting from YouTube. Or they ask questions like, well, why are you not doing it? And they didn't understand. I think in their mind, the FTC is like, oh, contextualized ads are just going to be about the same anyway. And it's like, no, that's not how it works on YouTube. And so it's not just that they are listening, but they actually need our information because they don't know this stuff.
Well, I am curious, and we don't know, exactly how contextualized ads are going to perform. We have what maybe YouTube's indicated, which is like it'll be a significant business hit, impact. But I am curious to know exactly what's going to happen because personalized ads still sometimes means that you are a 3-year-old and you're seeing a commercial for car parts, before you watch some kid content. And so I think the argument is made that advertisers are just doing poor targeting, but that would probably erase that. And then I wonder how many brands who aren't advertising on YouTube because they can't legally target kids who will come on board as a result of being able to do this. And so I don't know, like we just don't know. But YouTube's indication, they would know best right now about that.
What I'm more concerned about is if suggestions get impacted, then your views drop significantly. I mean, you may be losing 80% of your views, which is a bigger deal. Yeah, and then you're only running contextualized ads. I mean, it really could be a catastrophe.
Yeah. Soul Moon's Rising asks, so if our content is intended for adults, should we click on the 18 and older box and make viewers verify their age before they watch? I've done that once and got questioned by my viewers.
I personally wouldn't do that because that would probably dramatically impact the advertising revenue that I could make on that video. what's going to happen is YouTube is going to be rolling out a designation for all of our videos. And you either click that it is child directed or not. That's the way I understand it. I don't know for sure. We'll have to see what they do. But I don't think that you have to click it's 18 and above. You just aren't going to click that it's child directed. Right. That's my understanding of it right now.
So similarly to if we have a paid integration into a piece of content, we have to check that box saying that that full disclosure, basically.
Yep.
So what about people, and this wasn't from one particular person. I saw a few people, different people asking, and I just kind of mashing all the questions into one. Can people, instead of relying on ads, just go sell stuff instead? Like sell their own product? Will that just kind of take care of all this stuff for them, or not really?
I mean, again, if you end up losing all of your suggestions and you are a kids channel, you're going to have a lot less views. But clearly diversifying your income as a YouTuber is hugely important. And Tim talks about that all the time, of all the different ways you should be doing that. If you're too reliant on just YouTube revenue, this is an insecure Wild West that we live in, where things like this can happen. Regulation or a change in the algorithm or a change from YouTube can cause these problems. But for me, what I'm really fighting for is on the bigger policy side, that if you're taking away that ability for someone to go full time based on providing good content because of personalized ads, it's going to hurt creators into the future who want to come into this. What about the future Mr. Rogers, who could be making videos on YouTube 10 years from now or 20 years from now? That opportunity is going to be gone if you take away the primary way that we make money on YouTube. Yeah.
And that, I think all these same regulations would still apply. Now you just have to manage them yourself, and you're 100% responsible and reliable for them on your own website. Like even the FTC's suggestion of just put your videos on your own website. It's like, okay, well, I still need to they're going to come after me there unless I do all the same stuff. So it's not really like a solution because all these laws still apply.
And to get notification and, parent verification, you have to collect the parents' credit card information sometimes to try to do that. And so there's all these barriers. And so people are going to go watch Dude Perfect, who's free content and easy to watch, instead of going to my website because of all the barriers that regulation has created for me because I choose to make content for kids. And so that's why all those app companies were going out of business, was because it was impossible to keep up with the regulation realistically.
Right. Phil and Alex, I think it's a mutual friend of ours, asked, they said they had their comments turned off, and they're asking, is there any way to have and by the way, for those of you guys who don't know, that YouTube turned the comments off, 10 months ago or something?
March.
As a part of this, because that is technically collecting information from minors, from under 13 kids. So, and so a lot of channels have those permanently disabled, including my own, one of my own channels. And so they're asking, is there any way to have a channel categorized, or is there a way to have a channel categorized as adult aimed content and petition to have comments returned and not lose out on monetization by January 1st, 2020, which is when all of this is legally supposed to take effect, you guys. Like the key flips on January 1st. So not today, but is it just as simple as getting YouTube to recategorize your content and then you're not at risk of anything?
I wish things were simple with YouTube, but when they're dealing with so much volume, they tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater and then clean up the mess afterwards. And we tend to suffer through that process. At least that was my experience with ElsaGate, Adpocalypse, the March turning off of comments, all those things. Make sure to go in and make sure that you can't turn on your comments manually. I know on my channel, they turned off all the comments, but I have been able to go in on my own and select, no, I do want the comments on. So make sure you're double checking that if you haven't already. I just barely turned mine back on because I was like, I want it on. And I don't know if that was as much about COPPA as it was about the articles that came out about predators being able to use the comments to target children moments within videos. And so that was a whole separate issue. But unfortunately, YouTube has so much to deal with. It's hard for them to keep up. That's been my experience. And I've been able to connect with a lot of executives at YouTube, even over these issues, and talk to a lot of people. I really believe that they have sincere desire to help us. But it's so big and so massive that I just don't know that they're always able to do it as efficiently as I wish that they could, and to have an appeals process or due process or, any of these things to make it right. And so I think we have to expect for things to take a long time or not go the way we want with YouTube. And that's unfortunate, but it's a reality of the volume that they're dealing with.
So Crown and Clover in chat ask, why does he keep implying Dude Perfect is safe? I would think they would be one of the biggest targets. They are definitely kid targeted. They even have a Nerf line in stores. Any ideas? You want to clarify that?
Sure. Yeah. And this is not legal advice for Dude Perfect, right? Like, this is my personal opinion. I'm not an active practicing attorney, but if I was to come to Dude Perfect and to like analyze them on the factors, I think that you could say, look, you have 5 grown men who are playing sports games, which is clearly general audience. And I would say, I don't think that they're intending to like target children. They're just generally making content. But yes, a lot of kids like to watch their stuff. Now, you could come in and make arguments on the other side too, right? If you're the FTC, you'd be like, look, Dude Perfect, you're using a stuffed animal panda bear in all your videos, and you're putting on wigs and using funny voices and playing games with Nerf and all these, bottle flipping is clearly attracting 12 and under. So, I mean, there is a case that they're not child directed, but I would argue that they are. But again, where do you draw that line? No one knows. I want the line to be as far away from where I want it as far as possible. People could say on my videos too, like J House Vlogs is clearly child directed. And it's hard because you look at it and it's like, well, our biggest videos that YouTube has pumped onto YouTube Kids get millions and millions of views. But when you look at the whole 1,300 videos, not most of them are like Halloween or Christmas or birthday videos. Like, most of them are just normal everyday content. And so how is the FTC going to look at it? And I mean, a big concern is, how is YouTube going to use their machine learning to measure my content? They can't measure with a machine my intent, and they may not be able to take into account all those things. So those are other concerns that I have as well. But it's a really good question, and it's fair about Dude Perfect. Like, are they child directed or not? It just goes to show how confusing that definition is. Yeah. I think it's unconstitutionally vague.
And then you have like Stephen Scher and Chad Wildclay and a lot of these channels that are like probably right on that border, like that line between 7-year-olds through 13, 14-year-olds, like that's, I think 80-90% of the questions here are like, well, what about this? Like, how do I know like that my video is that, or my channel is that? What about family vlogging? And got Peter Hollins asking, well, what about music channels? And I mean, like Peter does a lot of great music, and some of them is like Hamilton, which you would argue is, as a Broadway show, as adult.
But there's Disney princess videos.
I know. Then he's got his wife dressing up like Elsa.
Aladdin. I mean, this is a thing. I know the intent of those videos was for a general audience. I do not believe, and I'm not, again, this isn't legal advice. I don't want to speak for Peter, but I don't believe Peter and his wife are like, we are trying to make these just for children, but kids like it. I mean, my daughter sat and watched Peter's videos and his wife for like an hour the other day. But this is the frustrating thing about the regulation. We let our kid do it. We took our phone and we let them watch on our account. That should not mean Peter has to turn off his personalized ads because I do that as a parent. That's the whole argument here.
Yeah. So Hoovalicious TV asks, what about those who are not or unable to monetize and do advertising? Does this affect people who are not, who don't have ads turned on?
I mean, the ways that it's going to affect you if you don't have ads turned on is that you still could have a loss potentially in suggestions. We don't know what's going to happen, but you lose notifications, you can lose comments. So if you're treated as child directed, there's all kinds of additional features that you're going to lose. And we're going to have to wait and see how big of a hit that causes.
Eva Atonia asks, how can we know if YouTube is ranking our videos for children if we don't have a YouTube manager or anything? And I think that's your point. You're saying we don't, and that's kind of the problem, or part of the problem.
I mean, I reached out to my manager about that specific question, and I have an amazing person that I work with at YouTube, and I've talked with other people there, and the answer I got was just that they don't use those systems anymore. They don't have that data. So I mean, I didn't get those answers, but I would be happy if that's what they have to tell the FTC too. I don't want that to be used against me at all if that's what YouTube did. So I don't know what they're going to do with that, but right now they don't have that data to give out to us, is at least the answer I got.
Yeah. So, and Tap Out Corner, thank you for the super chat, says, thanks for sharing all this information. Our channels that target both kids and adults affected, and we're saying potentially, right? Like it's for sure kids, but we don't really know where the boundaries lie for this. And that's part of the problem. And it could be like anyone who's just making good content that a family could enjoy. Like, I don't know. I like Pixar movies, even though I'm an adult. Like, I would say like there's definitely some jokes in there that only an adult would pick up on. Right. But my kids love it too. So like, right. So it could go either way.
I mean, here's the thing. What we know is that you have to turn off personalized ads on child-directed content. We don't know what child-directed means. And so where that needle falls determines the issue right now. But we do know that the FTC is considering moving that needle to include, any content that a lot of kids like to watch, which would make it much more content is included in the regulation.
So now is the time to comment, guys, or forever hold your peace. It's the time to get in front of the FTC, to click on the link in the show notes in the description and go leave your comment to them and just tell them what you think, what your concerns are, and as a creator or as a viewer. And there's other resources down there, including a link to Jeremy Sayhouse law channel where you can watch more about what Jeremy's working on as he continues to meet with the FTC and continues to kind of educate them on like, this is like the implications that could happen that we need to consider. And it's, I appreciate you, Jeremy, doing that. I know you've got a lot of other stuff going on family wise and personally as well. So appreciate you. But I've told this to you, but I'll say this in front of everybody that like, there's probably very few people who are as qualified to tackle this as Jeremy, because one, you're an active YouTube creator, two, you're a parent, and three, you're a non-practicing lawyer now, but you're non-practicing lawyer now because of YouTube, right? Because YouTube took off for your family and that provided a different way of life for you guys. And so, but you were a practicing lawyer for a long time. So if anyone can read all that jargon and understand what it means in like real life terms, I appreciate that's you. And I appreciate you guys, you doing that. And thanks to Kendra for letting you do that too. So your whole family, I know it comes at a cost to everybody with all your travel and everything. It's not just you. So thank you. And you guys check out those links. Any last minute, anything you want them to hear or anything you want to say before I let you go and everyone else go?
I just really appreciate you for doing this and letting people know about it. I mean, we need to try to get this message in front of the biggest YouTubers we can, because that's how it's really going to grow. The government can use regulation against us, but the weapon we have is influence. Let's use it. Let's get out and get that influence out and really let all creators know that this is something they should be paying attention to.
And as you say in one of your videos on J House Law, which is like, we're YouTube. If anyone's good at commenting, it's us, right?
Yeah.
So
we can do more than 99 comments.
Yes, let's do it. Yes, do it. Let's do all, not first. Actually, that's something helpful. But yeah, check it out, guys. Well, thank you, Jeremy, for being on here. And for the rest of you guys, as this evolves, I'm sure you get the latest information from Jeremy's YouTube channel. And if something big comes up with us again, we will maybe do another live stream as well in the future. So thank you, Jeremy, for your time. Thank you all you guys for hanging out. And we will see you guys again next week for another Video Creators Podcast episode. See you guys then. Bye.